You are listening to Mushing on First Paw Media. Visit our website at mushing.com.
Hello and welcome, everybody. This is Robert, and you're listening to our continued coverage of the 2025 Iditarod here on the Burled Arch podcast. And tonight I am joined by my two co-hosts, Roan and Michelle. Roan, how's it going today?
It's going pretty good. How are you doing, Robert?
I am doing well. Thank you very much. And Michelle, how's it going today?
It's going fabulous. And I think that I had a dog training client possibly reach out to you guys today.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Excellent. Excellent.
We did get a referral from you guys, so I really appreciate that.
I'm so glad that came to fruition for you, because she just happened to call on the fly about an hour ago. And so I just wanted to say, anybody out there looking to take on a dog mushing adventure should be contacting Susitna Sled Dog Tours.
Susitna Sled Dog Adventures.
Oh,
and we will put a link to that in the show notes for sure. So it has been a very interesting day here on Iditarod. As we usually do, we will start off where folks are at here at the recording of this episode at 7 o'clock Alaska time on Saturday evening. We have Jesse Holmes in first at mile 557. And a few miles back is Paige Drobny, followed by Matt Hall. Next up is Michelle Phillips, and then Ryan Reddington. And then in the back of the pack, we have Calvin Doherty at mile 402, Bryce Mumford at 406, Justin Olness at 407, and Connor McMahon at 409. And we did have two more scratches since we were on last night, Jeff Dieter and Mike Parker. And we'll talk a little bit about those guys as we jump into our race analysis. But my first question to Roan is, and I'm sure we can have Michelle chime in on this as well, but today is International Women's Day, and we have two very capable women mushers in the top four. We have Paige Drobny and Michelle Phillips. Roan, it has been a very long time since a woman won Iditarod. I know they have that saying that in Alaska, something about men are men and women win Iditarod, or something similar to that. But what are your thoughts on a potential woman champion? That would be an awesome deal, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely this year more than the last few years for sure. There's more really competitive females up at the front of the team, and the top four: Michelle Phillips, Matt Hall, Paige Drobny, and Jesse Holmes, all experienced dog mushers, all familiar with not only the Iditarod but also other 1,000-mile sled dog races. So they've got a lot of experience. They've got really well put together teams and well put together programs. So I think out of those front four, as each day goes on, if those guys stay in the guys and girls stay in the top four, it's most likely going to be one of them in the front. But stranger things have happened in Iditarod. There's still a long way to go, over 500 miles, in fact. So as the standings are right now, Jesse, Paige, Matt, and Michelle, they're all looking really good and really strong. So I wouldn't count it out this year. I think maybe this is the year for it again. I know in recent history, Ali Zirkle came pretty close a handful of times. A few second place finishes. I think prior to that, Dee Johnro was the last kind of really close female champion, and then before that, Susan Butcher, of course. So yeah, it's been a while, but maybe it's time.
Yeah, I think it could be time. Michelle, anything to add about Women's International Day, or whatever? International Women's Day, I guess is what it's called.
Yes. So there's actually 6 women right now in the top 15. And one of those happens to be rookie musher Emily Ford, which I think is remarkable considering she's bib number 34, and she has been in the top 20 since basically they got out of Manly. And so I think that's pretty remarkable. One thing to note too is that all but 8 mushers, as of right this moment, have completed their 24. So the 24 shakedown has completely altered the stage of the race. And I would go ahead and mention that Emily Ford in position 14 right now, and Anna Barrington also in position 15. Neither of them have taken their 24, which I believe they are doing at this moment. And so I am going to wager that we possibly could see the most women finish in the top 10 that we've seen in Iditarod history.
Well, I don't know. I do not know that stat, but that would be a very cool one for sure.
The historian over here probably does.
Oh, there you go. So Emily Ford is a very interesting story. When we were picking our Rookie of the Year, of course, both of us picked Brenda Mackey, and we were told that that may not have been a right pick because she had already ran once, and of course now she is out of the race. But I did not expect Emily Ford to be here. What about you, Roan? Did you?
You know, I'm pretty impressed with where she is at in the field right now. She has you know, in the last couple seasons gathered a decent amount of race experience though. I think last season, I believe the Copper Basin was her first 300-mile race, and then she ran the Kobuk 440 as well. So those are two pretty challenging sled dog races. A lot of challenging terrain and just trail conditions. So she did those pretty well. Did the Copper Basin again this year. So it seems like she's, you know, putting in the work, putting in the effort to, you know, really travel a lot of miles with her dog team, or, you know, with the dog team that she's running. And yeah, so that's it's pretty cool to see her up there, for sure.
Michelle?
I would go ahead and add, it would be remiss for me not to, that she's running a woman-owned kennel dogs.
Well, we are saying this, of course, because it is International Women's Day. We have to support that because we have a couple of businesses right here in this house that are owned by a couple of women, and we got to keep that going.
That's right.
For sure.
You just noted your position.
Just noted the position. So let's jump over. Let's jump over to the real topic of tonight, and that is what they're calling the CalTag loop. This is interesting this year because they added it in sort of at the last minute, I guess, because it is different than the traditional Fairbanks route that was ran in the years previous when it started over there. And I remember Mark Nordman was pretty adamant in saying at the media briefing right before the race is he had really no questions about not going to these checkpoints because he wanted to support all of the local communities there, and they had already done a heck of a lot of work to prepare for this year's race. These are his words, of course. And he said it's all about the villages. And he even said something to the effect of even if you get a piece of rubber chicken and a thin piece of filet at the ceremonial banquet, it is all about the communities and the rural villages that make this happen. So the reason I bring this up, because a good portion of the field, it looks like about 2/3 of the field now, are on that loop from CalTag and then around and then back up to CalTag to do the rest of the trail there. And remember, we said earlier in our coverage that the 8 hour on the Yukon has to take part at some point in this loop. So even these folks that are shaking themselves out right now and doing what they're doing on the trail, everybody still has to take another 8 hour rest on this. So, Roan, we were talking off air about mileages, and I know that you came up with something there. So let's talk about that first to give people an idea of the mileages on this loop, because this is where it really goes over that 1,000-mile mark that they've been talking about. And then tell us a little bit about it, because obviously you know much more about this trail than we do.
Well, honestly, I don't know a ton about this particular trail because the one year that I was supposed to run the southern route, we did a Fairbanks start and went up to Huslia. So I actually have not experienced the trail between Kaltag and Shagaluk. Hopefully in the next couple of years we'll make that happen. But I do know the mileages. So from Kaltag to Eagle Island, that's a pretty long run of around 70 miles, and then Eagle Island to Grayling, 56 miles. That's where the front runners currently are en route along that leg, and then 21 miles to Anvik from Grayling, 28 miles between Anvik and Shaglook, 28 miles between Shaglook and Grayling for the second time. So that's when they go around the loop, and then another 56 miles to Eagle Island, 70 more miles to Kaltage. So that's the splits for that particular leg, and then from there, it's the traditional route to the coast and along the coast that has been every single year on the Iditarod, or just about every year on the Iditarod, all the way to Nome.
And can you tell us a little bit about, because these villages, these communities here are a little bit, I guess, more remote, right, than ones like Nualto, Galena, Ruby, Tananal. Those, they're a little bit more remote than those, right?
Yeah, the villages along the southern route trail don't see as much regular traffic. I think from not only Iditarod, because if you think of historically the years that Iditarod has been a Fairbanks start, it happens to happen for some reason on odd years. So traditionally southern route years, 2003 being the first one. So that year they did go to Grayling and Anvik, and I believe they went to Shaglook and then turned around. So they did actually travel through the communities there. So they weren't skipped. But then 2015 and 2017 they ended up going to Huslia and Kayakuk instead of down to those three villages. So it's kind of a good way to have the race trail go to those three communities. And remember that a lot of the trail, the Iditarod Trail, is also traveled along the Iron Dog race, the snowmobile race that happens every year, travels along the northern route villages. So they see more traffic kind of throughout the winter with that as well. So it's kind of nice that they're going down to see these other communities that are spaced out pretty far. Kaltag to Grayling, there's really not much in between. So that's a section similar to between Tanana and Ruby. The Iditarod sets up a checkpoint of Eagle Island. That's just a kind of a temporary place that they have the race checkpoint, but that's about it out there.
So I did not ask you this question ahead of time, so this is right off the cuff. And we've talked a lot about all of these different checkpoints tonight. What is your favorite checkpoint other than Nome?
That's a tough one. I think I'm gonna have to go with my namesake of Roan Roadhouse. It's a really cool spot on the trail. You come up and over the Alaska Range, and I mean, Rainy Pass is beautiful. But then you do the Dalzell Gorge, and that's exciting. And then get into Roan Roadhouse, and from there, it's a pretty challenging section of trail between that one and the next checkpoint of Nikolai. So it's a cool spot because you're there, nestled in the mountains. You have some bare ground, some river, some wind-blown river ice, some snowless riverbed to travel on. That's just kind of typically that's expected out there for a stretch of the way. And so yeah, it's kind of a cool, like, remote, rugged checkpoint, and it's a remote one that nobody lives at full time.
And I know you said a couple of nights ago you are not a big socializer in these checkpoints, and I would assume that's not only with the fellow mushers, but you're probably not doing a lot of chit chatting with the locals. I assume the media, all of those folks, or am I wrong?
No, I mean, I think it's important to visit with the locals and engage with them. So that's what I'll definitely make a big attempt to visit with and interact with most. It's important to talk to the insider, talk to reporters, and really, be a good ambassador for the race and for dog mushing in general. So I definitely try to, but it's kind of like, well, doing this, I'm not racing. I'm not in race mode right now, so I can chat just about all day long. But then if I've got stuff to do, if I've got a trail to get down, I'm trying to stay pretty focused, and so I might just be like, okay, I got to cut it short and tend to my dogs.
So when you are out there on the trail, guys, and Roan has his head down and doing his chores, he, like most people, I would assume, would rather focus on that. And then when he is all set with all of his chores and all that, that is the chance to chat. So watch out for this guy when he's out there on the trail next year. Michelle, did you have anything to add with this little loop before we move on?
No, other than it looks like CalTag is pretty busy with a good group of them hanging out, tending to their dogs. Just saw Emily Ford on the video, and she was all smiles as she was grabbing some straw. And it definitely does look like several of the mushers that have not taken their 24 are probably doing that right now at CalTag.
So there we go, guys. Let's move on here. We mentioned at the top that we did have 2 scratches from the time we were on air last night until tonight. Mike Parker, a rookie, scratched last night, and then Jeff Dieter scratched as well. And from the reports from his wife and kennel partner, business partner, Katie Joe, they expected this to happen. They were not having a very good race. And I know that you said last night or the night before, Roan, that he is doing this because obviously he's thinking about the future of his team, not necessarily focused on this race. Can you tell us, you probably know much more about Jeff than you do Mike. Can you tell us a bit about that strategy and what's going through, at least through his head at this point in time, and kind of throwing in the towel at this point versus pushing on?
Yeah, I think I think it was one of those instances where there's probably a variety of factors at play, but I know based on a couple of the comments that he had made in some of the insider videos and some of the stuff they had posted on social media, he wasn't, I think, too stoked about doing the Fairbanks start. I think there were people, on both sides, a lot of people on both sides of, should we just do that tough section of trail and get through it and do the rest of the route, which from all, the other accounts looks pretty decent. Besides the 50 or 60 miles between Roan and Nikolai, and I guess the first 30 or so miles leaving Willow. So I think that was probably a factor that was kind of affecting him, just subconsciously. Is man, I wanted to do it from the traditional route, and then kind of early on, I think had some, just less than stellar runs, just for whatever reason. His team, maybe wasn't coming together well, maybe just needed a little bit longer of a rest after the quest run, or who knows. But I think it kind of, maybe he just decided that he wasn't having the most fun. If you're not having fun, it's not going to be as fun for the dogs. And so he thought, well, I'm just gonna make it to Galena. There's a nice commercial airport there, and catch a cargo flight back to Fairbanks, and plan on next year maybe.
So speaking of that, I remember hearing a bunch of grumbling from sort of both sides about that Fairbanks route or not. And of course, everybody saw all the pictures of that section of the trail, and pretty much a lot of the mushers spoke out, and pretty quickly they made a decision to move it to Fairbanks. So now that you're not running this what would have been your opinion of it? Which side of the fence would you have been on, and can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion that the traditional route, from the pictures that I saw, there's some pretty gnarly sections of dirt and tussocks, but that's something that teams have gone over for many years, and it's pretty easy nowadays to take the worst looking photo and post it and spread it on social media. I mean, there was, I think, a couple photos, or maybe a handful of photos from the Iron Dog group, an aerial shot of bare ground. 2014, that was the entire trail essentially was bare ground like that. So and there's actually, the dogs did great. People saying that it's dangerous for the dogs to run on dirt, I guess haven't seen the rest of the world outside of Alaska, where the dogs that live in most of the world don't experience snow, and they seem to do just fine. So the stretch of trail that's, yes, really bumpy, really rugged. I probably wouldn't take a lightweight fancy racing sled over that section of trail. I probably would be in the garage building a really sturdy old school toboggan style sled, and switch over to a lighter racing sled in McGrath. But yeah, I was leaning towards, if I would be more excited about a Willow start, or wherever they, a South Central start, and going the traditional route than the Fairbanks route. But that's just my opinion based on a couple photos, based on, kind of thinking about the trail in general. And, that was ultimately up to the race decision to say, and it's hard to say one way or another. I think this year we'll see, as the race goes on, how teams fare with all these river miles. Right now, 5 out of 33 teams is, that's a fair number to scratch. There's been more, there's been less. So I wouldn't say, it'd be hard to say what's comparative average at this section of the race. But yeah, I probably would have argued for a Willow start. We live pretty close. Granted, we do have more snow at our house than in Willow, and it's icy, but that's, just run less dogs, or carry some dogs in the trailer or something like that. I don't know. It's really hard to say what the trail is like when you're not actually out there, though.
And if we could stick with that for just one more second, I know that you guys have a finishers club, and most people have no idea what that means. Is that at all like the Players Association and like football or anything? I mean, do you guys have a voice? I know you guys have a representative, but on things like this, do you guys have some play in the game, if you will, or is it just sort of an opinion?
I mean, the Iditarod official finishers club does have, it's kind of the body for mushers to discuss and present like ideas about rule changes, or kind of input from the mushers as a group. So it gives them kind of a collective voice. But I think, I don't know if there was a statement from the IOFC regarding the trail one way or another. I know that it's kind of a volunteer run position, and I believe that the musher representative of the IOFC gets a board position on Iditarod, but I'm not currently familiar with the intricacies of the Iditarod race structure at this point, so I wouldn't be able to speak with any kind of authority on that. I think what ended up happening is a handful of mushers that were fairly prominent and fairly active on social media voiced their concern, and a bunch of people kind of jumped on board and said, yeah, me too, I agree with that. I think this people that were worried, and then that kind of just got enough momentum that if somebody's saying to the race, hey, this is going to be dangerous, the race is saying, well, if they stick to their guns and something happens, they're going to look, it's going to be bad. But also, if they say, well, it's fine, and then everybody's like, well, we want it to be a Fairbanks start. Well, what happens if the mushers say, well, we only want Iditarod to be a 500-mile race, and what's the Iditarod going to do at that point? So I don't know. It's a interesting chain of events that happened. Obviously, right now the front group, they're posting pretty fast travel times, so it doesn't seem to be too crazy of a trail in this particular section, but yeah, that remains to be seen. Whether or not it's hard to say. I mean, teams are out on the river, so that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting about the voice of the participants on any aspect. And I think of something like an Ironman. They have a particular course in Kona, Hawaii, and they do that pretty much no matter what. And I don't know necessarily if the participants get a vote on that one way or the other by saying, oh, we shouldn't run because it's 115 degrees along the highway on our bike. I think we should cut that down. So it's interesting how sports have evolved to really include the voice from social media. And I've always said on this show that social media for the Iditarod is sort of a blessing and a curse. It's excellent for fans to follow, and I'm sure for people to obtain sponsors and all that, but there's also some drawbacks, I'm sure. So, Michelle, you have a quick update from the Insider or something about this trail?
Yeah, it looks like Bruce Lee talked to Paige Drobny in Eagle Island, where she reported he says that the trail from Kaltag to Eagle Island was easily one of the 10 worst trails she's ever been on. Now we anticipate the first musher arriving in Grayling, where the GCI Dorothy Page Halfway Award awaits. So that was posted today. I'm not sure what time today, but this particular entry on Insider was posted today.
Very interesting for sure. So yes, things will continue to develop as we go on. So let's move over to one of our questions, and it happens to be a multi-part question, and it happens to be from the same gentleman that asked the question last night. So guys, you can get your questions in. You can do it by voicemail by calling 303-578-9881 and leaving us a voice memo. And we promise we will not answer the phone. So if you're a little shy to talking to folks, it just goes right to voicemail. It's not going to be us saying hello. Otherwise, you can send them over on any of our social channels, as well as I guess you could send them to Roan on his social channels, and we will pop those into wherever they fit into the race. But Ian from the UK has this multi-part question, and we're going to field this on two sides. We're going to have Roan go first, at least from the race perspective, and then I'm going to give my part from sort of a mid-distance expedition type feeding schedule. Of course, it's about feeding. So here we go. How many calories does a dog use during a race? And I assume that's daily calories. What do you feed? And how does that change in the off season? And what does that feeding look like in terms of calories as well? So a bunch of little pieces to this, but Roan, break it down to us in terms of race feeding and then off season feeding if you can.
Yeah, so I believe the calculation that they've kind of come up with is around 11,000 or 10 or 11,000 calories per day for an Iditarod sled dog. So if you break it down in terms of like how many miles per day the dogs are covering, roughly 100 miles per day. So 100 miles, I think that's 50 calories per mile. I should get my calculator out for that, but I think it's around 50 calories per mile is kind of just off napkin math. So that's a lot of calories. 10,000 calories is a lot to get into a dog in 24 hours. The most calorie dense way of doing that is obviously fat. 1 gram of fat has significantly more calories than 1 gram of protein or carbohydrates. So a bite of fat gives the dogs a lot more calories, a lot more energy, and that's one of the things that they go through a lot of while they're running. Is dogs can burn fat really, really well. So they eat a lot of fat to keep their energy up, but with any kind of exercise, physical activity, protein is very important as well. So basically, it just involves getting the food in, getting the energy in to the dog that's being taken out by running, and producing body heat. So on a colder race, the dogs will burn more calories. They'll eat more. On a warmer race, they'll burn slightly fewer calories because their bodies don't have to ramp up production of body heat as well. So they don't go through quite as many calories on a warm race. But yeah, it's a substantial amount, and the best, the easiest way to get that in is by pushing a lot of fat into the dogs. So they do really, really well at metabolizing that. And as far as when and where and how often the feedings take place, that's something that everybody does slightly different. The goal is for the dogs to eat really well when they're presented with a meal. So one school of thought is to kind of do fewer meals spaced out a little bit more, so that when the dogs get a meal, they get a really big meal. And typically that's timed with at the beginning of a rest period, and then they can digest that while they're resting, put it back into their bodies, and then they can run on that. Another school of thought, another kind of philosophy, is to give the dogs lots of small meals, so that they're constantly kind of digesting a little bit and putting that into their bodies over time. So more smaller meals is another way of getting the same amount of calories. The problem with that is you might offer them a meal or a snack, and they might be like, I'm not feeling it right now. But then the advantage is, a short time later, you offer them another snack. So many small meals or fewer big meals, either way, the goal is to replenish what calories are coming out in the most effective manner. So they eat a lot of fat. They eat a lot of different kinds of meat, beef fat, chicken fat, turkey fat, pork belly. There's different kinds of fat blends, salmon, she-fish. Those are pretty fat and oily rich fish as well. But yeah, they eat a variety of meats. The kibble that they get fed is high in fat, in addition to good protein sources as well. So yeah, basically just a lot of high calorie food.
So with that, Roan, what does the off season look like? So if it's about 11,000 calories in the dead heat of a race, what are you feeding in the middle of July? I know you're a tour guy, so it may be different than somebody that does not do that. What are you guys doing in terms of calories per day for kind of the off season?
In the off season, it's significantly less. Even for us doing tours, we're not running nearly the amount of miles, not the same amount of output for the dogs as they are in the wintertime. So it's more of just a maintenance amount. If we fed them the same diet that they're eating right now, even for us doing tours, not for doing distance runs, they would quickly become much heavier than we would want them to be. So we will cut back the food that we're feeding in the summertime, just in terms of the quantity. Typically, we're not feeding as much raw food as well, just because it's, from a practical standpoint, more difficult to keep large amounts of frozen meat frozen in the summertime. So we kind of just do a maintenance diet of primarily commercial kibble, primarily dry dog food, and then they'll have water on hand. So that's typically what we do in the summertime is feed kibble in the summer, and then in the training season, fall and into winter, we'll feed kibble mixed with various types of other protein or fat sources.
And as Roan said, ask one musher, they will tell you one thing. Ask another, they will tell you another in terms of what their breakdown is. But in the end, it probably all pretty much manages out the same, because a lot of these guys are competing at about that same level. In our case, since we are not doing racing currently, we pretty much feed the same diet year round. We do cut back a bit in the summer. Typically, we're feeding a diet of commercial kibble and some type of beef blend. What's interesting, and I find this very interesting when people ask about where we get our food, currently there is only one major supplier of meat in particular here in the Matsu Valley. And if you think about just how many sled dogs there are and one store is kind of our go-to. Think about that in human terms. If there was only one grocery store for all of those hungry mouths, it can be quite the bottleneck at the feed store when shipments come in, especially if they're late because of logistics and all that. But I've always found that to be very interesting with only one spot really to buy food. I did some quick searching, and this is more for our listeners. Roan said about 11,000 calories. And to put that in humans' perspective, I know this has been talked about before, but a Big Mac is 563 calories. So at 11,000 calories a day, that is 19 and a half Big Macs per day. That is a lot of Big Macs. I know that one guy tried that one time doing only a McDonald's diet, and that did not turn out very well for him. I do not think it would turn out very well for a team of sled dogs, but that's a lot of calories any way you look at it. Michelle, do you have anything to add on the food section before we move on?
No, I'm a little bit grossed out by the fact that they have to eat so many calories. But, people have to realize that these are athletes, and athletes eat at a different level than the rest of us. And that's sometimes what it takes to keep them going, but also to keep them in their most optimal athletic modes.
And I love to cross source sports, and I'm a pretty big NFL fan. I remember watching a game this year with the Baltimore Ravens, and they have this super stud running back by the name of Derrick Henry. He gets paid very well for what he does, but I remember him saying in one of his interviews that he spends $2 million a year on his nutrition. And of course, he has private cooks and he gets the best food, and I'm sure he has a bunch of supplements and all sorts of stuff. But that may seem like a lot for a man that has that kind of contract. But I know Roan, and both Michelle and I are sitting here right now, a huge portion of our pocketbook goes to that food. I don't know if it's exactly $2 million like Derrick Henry, but it's a lot, isn't it, Roan?
Yeah, I think percentage-wise, for how we're doing in a season, I would say we're putting more of a percentage of, I don't know what Derrick Henry's salary is, but yeah, we put a pretty sizable percentage of our gross income back into food for the dogs, and that's one of those things that if you feed them the best food you can, the best nutrition, that's one of the ways that you get the best performance. So it is a very important factor. Feed them the best and get good performance out of them. You're not going to get a good performing team if you feed them the cheapest and kind of just table scraps kind of here and there all over the place. It's good to kind of have a goal of what you're feeding, why, and if it costs a little bit more, that's that's just the price of one of the many prices of having a really nice dog team.
For sure. So let's move on to
I have some interesting news that I just saw pop up on Reddington Mushing that I thought I'd share.
Okay.
They posted this about an hour ago, so if you guys don't mind me jumping in with this, I just told you guys about Bruce Lee's interview with Drobny saying it's one of the worst trails she's ever been on. Well, Reddington is actually saying a little bit more than that. He said it was rough, some of the toughest he's seen, especially for a river trail, which is usually level and smooth. And Insider captured a pretty epic drone shot of Ryan and other mushers crossing a patch of the Yukon with some open water last night early morning. And one of the photos that they posted on their Facebook page definitely shows a large gap in the river that they're having to traverse over. So that is mentally taxing on both the dogs and the musher. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, for sure. And I saw that picture that I believe that Christy Barrington posted of Anna out there on a very similar scene there as well. So yeah, that's the nature of river running. I've spent many a many hours out there on those rivers here right in our backyard, the Sioux River and the Yentna and all of those, and I'm sure Roan has as well. I mean, both of us have the extreme luxury of living on the other side of the highway, so we don't have to deal with rivers too much unless we jump in the dog truck, right, Roan?
Yeah, I can actually get out on the Susitna River from it's about 15 miles from the house. So it's one of the ways that I can get out and link up with other trail systems. This year, that has not happened simply because we travel on Sheep Creek and cross the Big Sioux, which early season when we did have a decent amount of snow coverage, we did not have good river traveling miles. So this year we've been doing alternate trails. We're fortunate to have enough of those around here to where we can get some good mileage without crossing frozen rivers. But last season, even while we were scouting out the route kind of midway through the winter across the Big Sioux, there was quite a few open leads that we had to kind of go along up and down river, eventually finding a spot to cross the leads, on safe ice. And just because it's safe for 1 week or a month, the conditions on the river can change a lot, and that's something that you have to be extremely cautious of with river travel. In fact, I believe there was a story just recently of some residents from like Wasilla that actually people put a four-wheeler through or a side-by-side through the river, and I don't think they've unfortunately found them in the river. So it can be some serious danger on the river. So that's just one of the things about wilderness travel, running dogs or just living in Alaska, is treating those rivers and with a tremendous amount of respect.
Yeah, and that crew that went out there, I guess one of the guys that's still missing. I think they're still missing. I don't think they've found their bodies yet. Was an iron dogger. I believe he ran this year. So a guy that is very familiar with river running for sure. Roan, aside from this year, I'm sure you had a lot more traffic than normal because so many people trucked up to your neck of the woods, Montana Creek area. Do you see a lot of musher traffic up where you are? Because we don't. We have literally Matt Failer and his crew and Vern Halter and his crew. Other than that, we are pretty much on our own to run sled dogs over here.
Yeah, that's kind of the same with us. We put in a lot of the trails ourselves, and then every now and then there will be other people kind of traveling through and finding the trail and using it. It'll be interesting to see the next couple of seasons because so many people have come up here and used the trails that we typically train on. If more people come out and use those same trails, but there's kind of with a lot of people that have sled dogs, it's really, really nice to be able to mush from your house, from your backyard. And so people typically train and practice on trails that they're familiar with. So if you live in Kinnick, you travel on the Kinnick area trails. If you live in Willow, you travel on the Willow area trails. And even Willow itself, I guess depending on which part of Willow, like you guys are on the Hessler Norris trail system, and that's kind of geographically bordered by a fairly major road, so that kind of is southeast of that particular road. And then the ML Stenzik trails in Willow are on the northeast side of Willow, and then there's the what do they call them, the West Gate trails on
Gateway.
The west side of Willow, or West Gateway trails on the west side of Willow. So even in Willow itself, there's kind of three different trail systems, and not everybody utilizes all three. And then we're just a little bit further north, so our trail system it's not quite as extensive as some of the Willow ones, and there's just fewer dog mushers using them. So typically we don't see that many teams out there.
It's kind of cool to be kind of out there on your own sometimes, but it's also good to have a little bit of passing traffic and somebody to say hello to as you're running by for sure. So let's jump over to our musher profile of the evening. We are talking about
Travis Beals.
And we have a soundbite from Travis from the Musher meet and greet. So let me go ahead and drop that clip right here.
I'm here with Travis Beals, and I hear he has some inside scoops about the Burled Arch and how they found it. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, Grammy Smith had asked me to look around for a particular style of tree, and growing up in Seward, Alaska, we've got big old growth spruce, and that being super special to me, finishing 11 Iditarods or 10 Iditarods, soon to be 11, and it was really special to me to try to help. So we spent our summer poking around in the woods and trying to find, you know, the perfect one. And it really did take all summer long. And I'd shoot Ramey a picture, and he'd, no, not quite right. And I'd agree, yeah. And anyway, we finally found one that I thought was just perfect. And Ramey is, man, he's a skilled carpenter, and yeah, he made it happen. It's beautiful.
It absolutely is. But he told me a little bit about the day you guys got it, how you had to sling up the ropes and he was slipping and sliding all over the place. Do you have any kind of funny blooper story you could share with us?
Well, I'm sure Ramey was, you know, out there like a little kid climbing in the trees like his, you know, young heydays. And I think that's funny on its own, just, you know, Ramey up there climbing the trees.
Absolutely. Were you there that day to help him out?
I wasn't there that day. We did go a couple weeks prior, and I helped, you know, show him the way to what a couple of trees that I thought would be suitable for the arch, and he thought that one would be great, and helped you know, line up a couple things, and he made it happen.
I appreciate you giving me that inside scoop, Travis. Good luck at this year's Iditarod, and you will be finishing your 11th.
Yes, yep, we will. And yeah, it's special that tree came from Seward. I think that was pretty cool.
I agree. You know, he told me it came from between mile 1 and 2 of the original Iditarod Trail. It spent some time in my neighborhood, literally a half a mile from my house. And now it's going to be on its way to Nome tomorrow, from what I understand. So it has encompassed the entire state and the mushing community, which I think is very cool.
That's incredible. Well, thanks for covering the story and putting it out there for everybody to see.
Thank you.
And that was a clip from Travis Beals. What do you have for us, Michelle?
Well, Travis Beals is the Turning Heads Kennel Musher, and he's having a pretty great race. He is currently in 9th position and has completed his 24. At this moment, he is just outside of Eagle Island, and the dogs are running at a steady 9 miles per hour. Travis has been a dog musher since he was a toddler. His mom was a sprint dog musher, and Travis and his partner Sarah call Seward home. Travis does say, "We value quality dog care and helping others above any race placement." Travis and Sarah take dog care pretty seriously, as they mention on their website some accolades, saying their dog care has been publicly recognized as the best in the sport by the Tustamina 200, the Copper Basin 300, and the Knik 200 races multiple times, and Travis received the Sportsmanship Award in the Willow 300 in 2022, another Best Dog Care from the Knik 200 that same year, and the Sportsmanship Award in the 2022 Iditarod, with the same being awarded to him in the Willow 300 in 2023. Whew, that was a mouthful. Notably, his philosophy regarding dogs began when he bought and bred his own as a junior. In 2009, he was awarded Rookie of the Year and second place performance for the Junior Iditarod. In 2024, Travis was contacted by lifelong friend and Iditarod musher Ramey Smith, as he mentions in the soundbite, to assist him in locating the perfect Sitka spruce from the Chugach mountain range in Seward. Travis and Ramey did find the perfect tree right around milepost 1 and 2 of the original Iditarod Trail, and that tree has been beautifully transformed into what I shall shamelessly proclaim possibly the best arch yet. It's due to be erected in Nome on Front Street on Tuesday, and I think it's just really cool that 2 dog mushers had a hand in helping this one come to fruition.
Three actually. Brian Mills.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Iditarod musher as well.
Yes, he did.
Very
You're
interesting.
Right. 3 mushers.
Just a quick note on that for folks that may not know, the original Iditarod Trail did start in Seward, and there's a placard down there that does show mile 1, and then of course it traveled up north through our neck of the woods, and then hang a left a little bit, I guess, not too far south of us, through Kinnick, and then onward to Nome. So, Roan, I understand that you are friendly with Travis. What can you tell us about him that we haven't already said?
Yeah, I think this year is a good example for Travis in particular of with Iditarod mushers when they say the finish line is in Nome. I know he was signed up for a handful of other races early in the season, Kinnick 100, Kinnick 200, and then I think he ended up not running them just because he kind of looked at the trail conditions and was like, I don't need to do this race right now. I'm focusing on Iditarod, and so that was Kinnick 100. And then Kinnick 200 is like, I don't need to do this race. I'm focused on Iditarod, and I was also signed up for I believe the Cusco, and then was like, I'm going to focus on Iditarod, and has been traveling a lot because of the trails at their home, aren't conducive for really good Iditarod training this season. So I know he's been doing a lot of traveling and really focused training, and just kind of with the goal in mind of having a really good run on the Iditarod Trail. So that's a good example of, I think, the way his season has been going, of focusing on getting to Nome and doing really well on the Iditarod Trail, and that, like the other races, it'd be nice to do, but that's kind of secondary to the main goal of the Iditarod.
So you've known Travis for quite a while. I know both of you guys have grown up in Mushing. Do you have any interesting encounters with him? Have you ever raced neck and neck? Have you ever spent any time together in a checkpoint? I know that you said you're kind of quiet. What can you tell us about Travis, at least maybe off the trail a little bit?
Yeah, I haven't traveled with him much on the trail. Actually, this year was, I saw him on the trail more than any other season. Him and his wife do have a son pretty close in age to our own kids. So, we've been catching up on parenting tips and, telling kids stories. So that's been fun to connect through that, kind of outside of dog mushing. Yeah, so I think, that's one of the things that it's so nice to be a parent and have kids. But when you're an Iditarod musher, having kids is, that's something that is a big challenge, because some of those guys out there in the front, they can spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week focusing just on their dog team. And when you have kids, that's every bit as important, if not more important than your dogs. I mean, it's right up there side to side. And so that's one of the challenges of growing up in mushing or raising kids while mushing. But it's, I wouldn't personally trade it any other way, and I don't think Travis would either.
Robert, truly speak on that. He got into dog mushing years before he met me and my kids. And once he met my kids, our daughter was 2 years old at the time he joined our family. And unfortunately for him, but fortunately for us, he paused his mushing career for quite a while. And so that's interesting that you say that. It's always a toss up, where your passion lies. Of course, your passion lies with the dogs, but your heart knows that you need to be there for your wife and your kids.
And you probably hear me flipping furiously through the Iditarod catalog, and I'm trying to figure out, before I misspeak here, about the Musher Awards. And if memory stands correct, there's usually a bunch of these awards before now, and I know that with the new route, they've only awarded one award so far, and that was the Feast of the Yukon. I am going to find out more about that for tomorrow's show. That will be a focus a little bit, so we can talk a little bit about those awards, because obviously the sponsors and the communities spend a lot of time thinking about those. So with that in mind, Roan, before we close for tonight, do you have any parting words?
Well, it looks like I believe the halfway award is being presented in Grayling. Is that correct?
Yes.
CalTag. CalTag is the.
I thought they said Grayling.
I thought that.
All right. Well, I may be corrected.
The Dorothy Page Halfway Award is in Grayling. I just read it.
Okay. Very good. So
Yeah,
that is
okay.
true.
I was paying attention, Michelle.
Okay, go ahead, Roan.
Yeah, so it looks like Jesse Holmes is on his way to that one, unless he has any issues. Him and Paige are headed that way. Pretty equal speeds, both cruising along at right now. Jesse 9.3, Paige 9.5, and she's 8 miles behind him. So yeah, after this podcast in the morning or later at night, the first of the halfway award is going to be presented to one of those two teams, and then we'll wake up and see who's around the loop, how far around the loop they are, or who's just getting started with that little loop portion. I guess I don't know what you call the loop. Are they on the loop right now? I guess so. But yeah, pretty soon teams are going to start heading back up the Yukon River, and then in the next little bit over to the coast. But there's still a lot of river miles to go. Still a long way to Nome. So yeah, we got a lot more Iditarod to go on.
And at the time of this recording, here at 8 o'clock Alaska time, it shows that Jesse Holmes on the tracker is at 566 with 562 miles to go. So it looks like he just passed the official halfway point in terms of miles. In terms of miles, he is 4 miles further than the official mileage halfway. So very interesting. We are 5 days, 9 hours, 4 minutes into the race, and we are just now halfway over. So very cool for sure. Michelle, do you have anything before we close?
I do. Our students at the Shiva Education Center had submitted to us lots of questions. Several questions, 3 of them actually, have been answered on tonight's show inadvertently. So I hope that they were paying attention. But I've got one for Roan tonight. And Roan, this comes from Michael Baraka. And he wants to know, how many people can a sled carry for a ride?
He is the one. He's the tour guide.
That's a good question. I guess the answer is it depends on the type of sled. The racing sleds that a lot of the mushers have right now, they're not necessarily carrying multiple people, but often are carrying multiple dogs. That's something that in recent years people have been doing more frequently, is giving certain dogs in their team a ride for a period of time and then putting them back in the team, or multiple dogs kind of rotating out, some dogs riding in the sled, kind of like they're getting a tour. Our tour sleds can accommodate anywhere from 2 to 5 people with kind of multiple sleds hooked together. So kind of like a trailer on the Iditarod, we'll have a second sled with multiple people on it. Historically, back in the day, with dog mushing being used as hauling freight, hauling things like supplies to the mining districts and gold out of the mining districts, a sled can carry a lot of weight. Gold is heavy, so they hauled literally tons of gold out of the Iditarod region via dog team in the 1900s. So I guess it depends on just how comfortably you want to sit and how tall the people are, but yeah, quite a few.
And of course, they have specially designed sleds. A lot of these tour guys, they have some with seats built into the sled. A lot of times they run in the sled bag type situation. Sometimes they have people standing up on the sleds behind the musher. There's just all sorts of different ways to be able to do this. So,
and one last thing, Roan, I have a question for you. I work with a lot of veterans that have disabilities. Do you guys have a way to accommodate anybody with a disability to join you for a ride?
We have sleds where the passengers can be sitting the entire time, so they don't have to stand. Some of our sleds have pretty cush seats. It's almost like sitting in a movie theater and watching the dog mushing movie in front of you in real life. So yeah, we've got some cool sleds that have like a director's chair that you're sitting in. So as long as you can get to the sled, I mean, we can even pull it out to the person's car, help them into it, and then kind of pull them around. So yeah, we can accommodate a pretty wide range of athletic ability.
Nice.
The Sitna Sled Dog Adventures is what Roan is talking about. Definitely check these guys out. They do tours year round. So they even do night tours, is my understanding. So if you're thinking about those northern lights, if they are shining here in our neck of the woods, they do not come out like a light switch. So you have to be prepared. They may be out at 2 o'clock in the morning on a random Thursday. You just never know when they are going to shine. So with that, we will see you guys tomorrow. On behalf of my co-hosts this year, Roan and Michelle, we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Are you a fan of the great outdoors? Do you enjoy the thrill of speed and adventure? Then listen up. Introducing Mushing, your ultimate guide to the exciting world of dog-powered sports and mushing. Whether you're a seasoned musher or just starting out, Mushing has got you covered. Get ready to immerse yourself in captivating stories of incredible sled dog races, expert training tips from seasoned professionals, and gear reviews to help you make the right choices for your team. From the breathtaking landscapes of Alaska to the snowy trails of Scandinavia, Mushing takes you on a thrilling journey through the world of dog-powered sports. Don't miss out on the latest issue, packed with exclusive interviews with top mushers, in-depth articles on sled dog nutrition, and stunning photography that will transport you to the heart of the action. So whether you're dreaming of competing in the Iditarod or simply want to learn more about this incredible sport, Mushing is your go-to resource. Subscribe now and get ready to unleash your passion for mushing. Visit our website at mushing.com. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. Mushing, where the spirit of adventure meets the power of the pack.